So, a very warm welcome to all of you to a performance tonight by our visiting artist in residence, Mehret Kevere. Still getting used to pronouncing her name. Mehret has been here, almost a whole week now, and has been working on both a video and a performance that we get to enjoy tonight. Okay? Could you please take a moment and turn off your cell phones, because this is, after all, about silence. I'd like to talk a little bit about Mehret and then a little bit about the performance very briefly. Mehret is a visual artist and a poet, expressing herself through actions and words. She's an intercontinental artist with collaboration at the heart of her practice. She has done this through public performances in cities such as Addis Ababa, Berlin, Khartoum, Vienna, Mombasa, and Madrid. She has 2 degrees from the Addis Ababa University School of Fine Arts and Design, a BFA, with a distinction in painting, and an MA in arts. And she is currently a PhD candidate at the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. So clearly a very ambitious young artist, really interested in engaging with the world. This is also an artist whose creative endeavor defies disciplinary boundaries. She got her degree in painting, but now is working in the performance realm. As she's developed her research, silence, and that silence with a capital S, has become her main area of interest. She investigates unwritten and nonverbal communication through different cultures in both social and political situations. So she's very much interested in engaging with the world. And I've seen that personally with her residency here. So a little bit about our performance tonight. The title of it is a reciprocal of 4 minutes, 33 seconds, which is kind of the seminal John Cage piece, pun intended, about silence. So the original performance was done in a concert hall, not unlike this one. Very similar setup here with the piano, grand piano, and the bench. A performer came in. The original one was David Tudor, if you're familiar with. He was a virtuoso pianist, played for many modern dancers. He sat at the piano and never touched a key. It was timed. There were 3 movements that are timed, and that timed, there's someone that, the page turner, if you've ever seen classical music, there's someone up there that keeps the time and turns the page. There's a page turner as well. So conceptually, there's a lot going on behind this piece, right? Because nothing happens. And suddenly it's all silence and everyone is filled with expectation of something that's going to happen, and it never does, and it pisses a lot of people off. So this is at the time, in the day where you could piss people off by pulling a non-unconventional stunt, if you will. Okay? So there's that piece that Mehret is reacting to, and she's also going to react to a video of John Cage talking about his thoughts about silence. And so she's reciprocating, reprising, restating a lot of John Cage's thoughts and concepts tonight. So it's very exciting, and I'm very interested to hear. Please feel free to stick around after the performance and have a conversation and questions, because I think it'll be a very interesting conversation. So there's 2 parts. The first part is a pre-recorded video, and then the second part will be a live performance. And from the video, it'll just move into the live performance. So thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate you getting here, and I look forward to this next 30 minutes. Thank you.
When I hear what we call music,
when I see what we call classical painting,
it seems to me that someone is talking.
it seems to me that someone is showing, talking.
And talking about his feelings or about his ideas of relationships.
And showing about his feelings or about ideas of relationships.
But when I hear traffic, the sound of traffic,
but when I see color, the sound of color,
on 6th Avenue, for instance,
here on the University Avenue, for instance,
I don't have the feeling that anyone is talking.
I don't have the feeling that color is talking.
I have the feeling that sound is acting.
I have the feeling that color is acting.
And I love the activity of sound.
And I love the activity of color.
What it does is it gets louder and quieter.
What it does is it gets warmer and cooler.
And it gets higher and lower.
And it gets denser and lighter.
And it gets longer and shorter.
It gets long strokes and short strokes.
It does all those things which I'm completely satisfied with.
It does all these things which I'm completely satisfied with.
That I don't need sound to talk to me.
I don't need color to talk to me.
We don't see much difference between time and space.
We don't see much difference between time and space.
We don't know where one begins and the other stops.
We don't know when one shines and the other fades.
So that most of the arts we think of as being in time.
So most of the color that we think of is being in time.
And most of the arts we think of as being in space.
And most of the color we think of is being in space.
Marcel Duchamp, for instance, began thinking of thinking of music as being not a time art, but a space art.
I, for instance, began thinking of color as not a time art, but a space art.
And he made it a piece called Sculpture Musicale.
And I made a piece called የቀለማት ቅርጽ,
which means different sounds coming from different places.
Which means different colors coming from different places.
And lasting, producing a sculpture which is sonorous and which remains.
And lasting, producing a sculpture which is sonorous, which remains.
People expect listening to be more than listening.
People expect color to be more than a color.
And so sometimes they speak of inner listening, or the meaning of sound.
And so sometimes they think of inner coloring, or the meaning of color.
When I talk about music,
when I talk about painting,
it finally comes to people's minds that I'm talking about sound.
Finally, it comes to people's mind that I'm talking about color.
That doesn't mean anything. That is not inner, but it's just outer.
That doesn't mean anything. It's not inner, but it's just outer.
And they say, that these people who understand that,
and they say, these people who understand that,
I finally say, you mean it's just sounds?
Finally say, you mean it's just colors?
Thinking that for something to just be a sound is to be useless.
Thinking that for something to just be color is to be useless.
Whereas I love sounds just as they are.
Whereas I love colors just as they are.
And I have no need for them to be anything more
And I have no need for them to be anything more
than what they are.
than what they are.
I don't want them to be psychological.
I don't want them to be psychological.
I don't want a sound to pretend that it's a bucket.
I don't want color to pretend that it is a bucket,
Or that it's president.
or that is president,
Or that it's in love with another sound. I just want it to be the sound.
that is in love with another color. I just want it to be a color.
And I'm not so stupid either.
And I'm not so stupid either.
There was a German philosopher who's very well known, Immanuel Kant.
There was an American human rights activist. He is very well known. His name is Martin Luther King Jr.
And he said there are two things that don't have to mean anything. One is music and the other is laughter.
And he said, I look to a day when people will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Don't have to mean anything, that is, in order to give us very deep pleasure. You know that, don't you?
So, color doesn't have to mean anything. That is, in order to give us very deep meaning. You know that.
Experience, which I prefer to all others.
The color experience, which I prefer to all others,
Is the experience of silence.
is the experience of silence.
And the silence, almost everywhere in the world now, is traffic.
And the silence, almost everywhere in the world now, is color. I'm not silent anymore. You can talk, you can discuss, and you can ask me any question, and I'm here. It doesn't have to be a question, it's a comment or a conversation. Any ideas we can share?
What are you doing with gender up there?
What are you thinking about gender?
Well, we have the different outfits, the tie. So you've got some kind of, are you playing with the gender?
So I'm playing with some visuals and colors and presentation. It doesn't have to mean anything.
So in Cage's original piece, he's very far removed from it. I feel, along with like most of the minimalist art movement, but you're not playing along with that. You're very much a part of this piece. Why did you decide to go in that direction?
This is an enactment I'm doing, so I want to present it the way I want to present it, because I want to say something through the piece. I know he's very much into avoiding ego and let others to play the piece, so he doesn't want his presence in it. But since I'm part of this judgment as a person, as a woman, and as being myself, so I want to be more loud on this presentation. So that's
Congratulations on a really provocative piece, right? So I feel like I am immediately thinking about this, strategy that of repetition with a signal difference, a repetition that upsets it from within. I know it's like all color is just color, and color doesn't have to mean anything. I get that, but I think there is, I love that. I love that idea of repeating something in a way that actually dismantles it in some ways. But also, I wonder what it means, what referentiality means, right? What it means to take John Cage as starting point and then to move away. Can you talk about the history of the entanglement?
So I believe that the moment we give meanings to things, I think conflict starts that. Because we want to give more emphasis, we want to keep for something that we give meaning. So because we think, for example, I'm a woman, a black, and an artist, representing my country, Ethiopia. So all these layers means something to somebody else. For example, when I'm traveling from my country, the first question that I get is not my name. They just ask me, where are you from? So then the moment I say from Ethiopia, so whether I'm successful, whether I'm achieving something individually, it doesn't mean anything for them. So, but they start to associate what they know about my country and define me in a way. So I just want to break all these stereotypes and all this understanding of who is what. And we start to present ourselves in different ways. For example, we can talk about sexuality, we can talk about, other things. People are forced to express themselves in a different way because there is a problem, there is a conflict of interest out there. So for me, if anybody is presenting in a way they like, that should be okay. It doesn't mean anything, it means in a more productive way. I don't know if I answered. Hi, Surabhi.
Hi, how are you?
Surabhi.
I feel so pleased, to see you on stage. It's been a while since I saw you personally. We are friends from Ethiopia. Of course, your work really resonated into my thinking in many ways. So when you were reciprocating, you were unsettling some categories. I can understand that. One thing that struck me from your performance was that you were not repeating himself, even though you were repeating him in different ways. When you brought Martin Luther King, things got changed dramatically. So, what are you trying to do with
I think he's talking about like sound as it is, to give any other meaning apart from being sound. So I just want to, when we talk about Martin Luther King, it's about color and being black and being someone different. So that's the start of the conflict. So I want to bring that issue that starts with, for example, coloring, and to make it just nothing. I mean, we're just fighting for nothing. To me, there are more things that we should care about. I mean, we are born different, and we should respect that and enjoy our differences. I mean, I don't have to, it's just literal, to tell this truth for you. But when it comes to reality, but we're still doing it. And I don't know why we're doing it, but we're doing it. Especially here in the US. I'm from Ethiopia. Ethiopia has never been colonized, but neo-colonizing is there, of course. But we might not be that much, vocal about being white and black, but we can share, we can understand our neighbors and the history that we're facing, and the history that we face, that our ancestors fought for. So I think as much as we appreciate our differences, I think the difference is the start of the conflict. So it doesn't have to be that way. That's the whole comment that I want to make.
The first time I heard the John piece, it was like when I was a freshman during the TRW salons. And it was, at that time, it was the first time that what John Cage did is he took something we view as complex, as music, and just made it into simple sound, right? But one of the things like I got out of it was that you, in a way, did it the other way. In the sense of where you walked out with a symbol of what you would expect a pianist to wear, or if we take it societally, what a black woman would look like. And just expecting all of us to look different. And in a way, when you were taking it off, you were sort of showing the more complex colors that is within that. So that's sort of what I got, that he took something we viewed as complex and made it simple. He did something that was simple, or we view as simple, and made it complex.
Yeah. Remember, this is a reciprocal of Jokers for 33. So it makes sense in that way. But I think it's our information makes everything complex. And how we see things and how we give meanings to it.
Hi. So today in our TRW class, our TA asked the students what is silence, and there were different responses, and some of the students said that there are different kinds of silence we occupy another conversation. So I enjoy in the video how even though you take what John Cage says and repeat, you almost replace it with another inflection. So there's some slippage. So I've been thinking about silence as slippage. So this is not really asking the question, but I'm just very engaged this week in thinking about all the ways in which we inhabit, we produce, we create silence. Some of it helpful and some of it a taking away and a taking in. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense, yes.
So, and I enjoyed that very much in the video.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, specifically bringing back to what you said. And also, I was able to come to your talk, your presentation on Monday, and Behet's presented just a few samples within like this vast portfolio. And the one that I was really struck by was you called it the forced silence, right? And the visual representations and art that you created based off of the interviews that you had with people in the media during time in these experiments, like where it's becoming more and more silent in the community. And that piece, and then also this piece, like what I've been thinking about, or what it's brought me to think about is not silence, not as void, like silence not as a nothingness, right? And but silence as both a tactic that is used in colonization and neocolonialism, like a tactic of oppression, but how it can be retranslated into how can I see silence, I experience silence right now, so how can I listen better? Or how can I open up my other senses and see that it's not a nothingness, but what is there that just cannot be expressed. So that's what your work last 2 days really made that. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You elaborated well. Okay, just to give you some initial idea why I'm interested in working on silence. I've been working on silence during my master's program. I started to think about it because in my country, the silence that I'm experiencing as a citizen is disturbing me. But usually when we understand silence, silence doesn't disturb, right? But it was very much disturbing me because people were not speaking out. But at the same time, this silence is not a voluntary silence. It was a forced silence. So I start to question about the silence we're experiencing and the silence historically that we're connected to. In the late 19th century, Emperor Menelik had an interesting event with the community. There were a lot of attacks on the people, so people were complaining a lot. So Menelik heard about this complaint from the community and sent his own secret, I would say, police or spies to the community to investigate what's going on. And then these people goes to the community, and also we have also shepherds that usually you can understand what is going on in the community. It can be expressed through the shepherds, through their singing, through their poems. And then they understand that people are still complaining a lot. And then they went back to the emperor and said, people are still complaining. And the emperor said, again, the second time, please add more tax on them. And then they added more tax on them. And then they went for the third time, and when they see, on the third time when they added more tax on them, the people were in complete silence. And they came back to the king, Emperor Menelik II, and he said to him, people are in complete silence, so we don't know what's going on. And then it's a bit scary. And the king said, so now we are in danger. So we need to think about this critically. We need to negotiate with the public. We need to negotiate with the
where they complain with their questions. And then the king started to negotiate with the community through their silence than their verbal complaint. So I just took that silence as a very strong communication tool, as a very strong resistance tool. And relating to the silence that we are experiencing in my generation now. So why are we not making any change? Why our silence is not making any change? What is our silence doing? So I was doing this research since my master's program. Still, I'm working on it. I've been interviewing people. I was not talking about like literal questions like what are you thinking about? Like, for example, the city is going through a massive change. People are displaced from the city to the outskirts. Everything is demolished. I think 80% of the city is going to be gone. And there are a lot of complexities, and life is expensive. But I was just asking a simple question: how's life? And then they say, some of them were a bit okay to talk about it, but still conscious about their surrounding. Some of them are really silent about it. They are not willing to talk about it. Just maybe 1 or 2 or 3 people are loud enough to speak about it. And then still, they told me to keep their secret. I interviewed all this sound and went to my studio. I wanted to do with something with the sound, but finally, when my presentation comes, I don't want to expose them. So what I did was, I did a projection of their sound, recording sound, and did it with Audacity sound editing program. So I project the sound waves, and I sketched that. And that was my presentation. And I told my professor that I'm not going to expose them, but this is what they said. So that was the piece she was talking about. So I think you now you have a clue that what I'm talking about. I'm still doing a research in different countries, in different communities, how they are dealing with silence, what does silence mean to this community, to my community, to different people. And we were talking about silence in pedagogy the other day. And I understand that a lot of production is going on through silence because the professors are doing their research, their reading, and their writing by their own, but at the end of the day, they present it to their students. You know? So I was telling them maybe as a comment or as a suggestion, they also need to give the students time to contemplate, to respect their silence so that they can think and come up with something. So the teaching process to be very, productive. And I was also mentioning bell hooks, teaching to transgress. That's also another thing to see. So, there are many ways that we can look at things through silence. I'm still working on it. I don't have any definition on it, but still I can say there is no absolute silence. I guess that we can still listen to our heartbeat, our breathing. So those are the things that I'm just reflecting on.
I really love the idea that we come back to a lot in the humanities, that they're universals. And I think like music and dance are some of the first that got brought out. And the first thing I thought of is the way that I never think of silence as a human universal, but it's so inherently is. And yeah, just thank you for that.
So if you were to perform this piece in Ethiopia, would you change anything? And what would you change?
Which
This piece.
the one that I did here?
Yes.
Of course.
What would you change?
I don't know what's going to be changing in the people because we all have different kinds of ways giving meaning. For some of them, I help them to think differently. because we all have different backgrounds, how we came about, but I'm sure that change is possible if I show this to Ethiopia. Maybe we have a different kind of meaning or interpretation out there because we are all different culturally and historically, and how we observe things, understand things.
Yeah, I'm curious about why I love the choice of that video of John Cage talking about sound and silence, and I'm curious, the video seemed like you were making fun. It's hokey. The video is pretty hokey, somewhat endearing. I don't know what you all think, but I often assign videos to my students to think about whether silence exists and what is music and what is sound. And I'm curious about whether you find any of the ideas in that video redeeming, and or if it's, I see there's a lot in it. Or it was very funny too. I mean, he's like when he pets the cat. The way that the video is made is so bizarre. I loved what you did with it, but I'm curious about that choice, and then also curious about color being the visual equivalent of sound. How did you get there?
So we can also bring painting by Kandinsky or Matthias, and they are more focused on the expression of color as it is than narrating something. So you can also relate it to that. But you can see sound in color too. Yeah. Some colors are very loud for some people, and some colors are, like, for example, if I see a red, orange, for example, that color is disturbing me, really. For some people, it might be, so it's very loud for me. I cannot resist it, so I'm avoiding it all the time. So, I think there are loud colors and maybe cooler colors, so I can see sound in the color. Also, I can see sound in painting, too.
And musicians can see colors in sound. Some musicians.
Yeah.
I don't. So, yes. When you were choosing the outfit that you revealed through the piece, was it a representation of how to be yourself, or was it more of a counterpoint, or more so intended to just be the counterpoint to the very somber scene? So the pieces you chose to wear, were they a representation of how you view yourself in color, or more so just a counterpoint to the suit?
So, okay. When I'm sitting here and performing, so I don't see only look at me. I think I'm representing also some other people. There are people who dress like that, suit, and some other people are dressed like this, colorful. So I'm just playing with those realities that we are seeing in life, in everywhere. So I can also represent myself in it, but it's also representing other people too. I have friends who have those kind of suits, and also this. For them, it might be something else. Or it doesn't have to mean anything.
When you told me about when we were picking out costumes for everyone, you said, like, revealing the color, like, you're silent on stage, but the color is a noise, and so you're slowly bringing noise and color to the stage. Yeah, I liked that perspective when we had talked about it.
Yeah.
On the Cage's piece, the sound of the environment was very important than the stage performance, right? So he was more giving space to the environment sound to be part of the performance. So what I want to be more loud on the stage is the visual experience that we see. So I think in a way I'm talking about sound.
So, for me to get on that.
I can see that.
So we were talking about this silence video. It's multi-layered. So we're interested in specific part. There is cultural aspect. It's not our economic plan. There is political application. Or there are so many layers. It's multi-layered. So when we talk about that, whether specific focus is very good. So what was your focus? Silence due to something, or silence? I was trying to.
Actually, if I wanted only to talk about silence, a forced silence, I think I already said it all. But I wanted to do more. That's why I made it my PhD research project. I was also collecting silence is gold, all those kind of proverbs that we have. I just want to see it not only the literal meaning of that we are graphically experiencing my country now, but I also want to see the essence of silence. What does silence mean by itself in different cultures? That's also another part that I'm working on. So I'm not only seeing one specific, but the initial interest was the forced silence that we're experiencing, because we have a poetry and jazz program. I don't know if you know it.
Yeah.
So it's very verbal, it's very vocal. We're trying, somehow to speak through our wax and gold way of doing poetry. We've been doing it for 6 years series. There is a lot of change happening. I mean, not like black and white change, but I believe that we made a change on the audience that's coming to our program. So I think we made people to think more on that. But still, where the silence is becoming more and more, so the more we do the verbal thing, and the silence is becoming more and more. Because I think I would say the ruling party or the government is taking more action because people are too silent, because you have no idea what they're thinking about, so you take random actions. If people were more actively speaking out, so that I think might be easier for the government to take steps. But at this time, I think the silence is also confusing them. And I think that's why they are just arresting people randomly, and when something just small is happening, they just grab something, put them in jail, and then they just take quick actions. Because I think when people are silent, like Vineet said, it's very dangerous. You have no idea what's going on in people's mind.
Thank you. Coming back again. Still, I'm thinking through this question of repetition. Through repetition, as much as you unsettle, as much as you may perform some kind of parody, through repetition, we also intensify maybe. So in this regard, I'd like to know your conversation with Cage with respect to his understanding of time and space. Do you agree with him when he seems to lump time in space? Or how do you converse with his ideas of time and space?
Which part do you want to?
In general, he talks about time, he talks about space, right? So how do you particularly want to speak, to converse with him when it comes to understanding of time and space?
So I think time and space is what we agree on. Not like something to grasp. It's like we agree on time from this to this is this time, from this to this is space. But people are still investigating space itself. out of the universe that we know. So there is some kind of unclear thing, but still we want to agree on something, so we create those words or expressions. So I'm just using that frame in a way to what I want to say as an expression, as a response to what he's saying. I don't know if I answered you.
I'm curious to know if your work explores the intersection where silence and power come together, or how privilege influences silence in many different directions. Did your work speak to that at all?
Sorry if I get the question. I don't know. Can you elaborate more?
Sure. Well, I'm just thinking about how, with your story that you tell, that they use their silence kind of in a way a vehicle to maintain some power. But a lot of times in societies, people are silenced through power.
Yes.
And so this idea that like silence has all these different meanings, but even with Cage's piece, he's using his privilege and power to create silence. So does everyone have that ability to do that?
I don't think John Cage has created silence. I think he talks about it.
Well, no, I mean like in his piece, like not everyone has privilege to make art. Not everyone has the privilege to make commentaries about silence. I mean, I'm thinking a lot about who gets to claim silence, or who gets to frame it, even.
So, I think he's just investigating something than framing it. I think I'll see his piece as an artwork too, not only a music piece. And when you do art, you'll be creative, you'll be imaginative, and still you will try to add something more on it. So I don't think we can frame silence. Silence, we're trying to say silence, we're trying to understand silence, we're trying to make silence part of what we do, because we don't understand it. I don't understand silence either, I don't know. But I'm trying to work on it. I'm trying to do more research on it. If there was any definition or answer for it, I don't think I'll be able to perform this now.
Yet you offer it to us as an experience, right?
Sorry?
Yet you offer silence as an experience.
Of course, yes.
To wrap us up in watching these two bodies, which are specifically choreographed, right? To watch in silence on your own terms. So, there is something, silence may not be what you want to frame, but it becomes this shared experience, but in your terms.
Yeah, but by the way, when I'm performing here, even if I'm silent, I can still hear sound from the audience. Someone is sneezing, all are breathing obviously, someone's watch was ticking. And all this is breaking the silence in some way. But we bring silence here just to create a conversation. That's how I understand it. And it's part of a language, and language is not perfect to express what we want to say, I think. Sometimes it's a barrier.
Something that your performance helped me to explore silence as a physical, embodied experience, because in each moment that the time finishes and completes, your body falls towards the piano. And so I was just thinking about silence as holding color, and that holding color requires energy and requires physicality and physical expression. That holding of color each time you fell and your body went towards the piano. Is there more reflections that you can offer us about silence in the body and physicality and holding the body and holding color physically in front of us, in front of us?
Yeah. somebody is silent, that doesn't mean that somebody is not thinking or processing something and acting. I did an experimental exercise with one of the professors here and the staff members. I gave them a text to read, but I want them to read equally at once. But the text is a little bit vague. As you read the text, you can also question. The text makes you to investigate or try to understand. It's a kind of puzzle, but still you understand something out of it, but still there are questions that you want to ask. So I made them busy with the text I gave them, and I asked them to read it once, and at the same time, everybody was silent. Everybody was experiencing silence, but at the same time, things were going on, thinking process was going on. They were trying to answer the question that I wrote there, and then some of them would say like this, some of them would like they have gesture movement, you know, even if they're not talking, like in the literal, very literal meaning. So that's the kind of experiment that I did. So that is very much related to what you're saying.
Sure. So I love your experimentation with audacity and the sound waves. And I was thinking about that concept of danger around silence in your country. And when you were talking about that, and then you showed the audacity charts and the sound waves, and there was one where it was, I don't know, not necessarily the absence of sound, but there was very little sound. And so it was just, yeah, to me it was like the ones that had the bigger sound waves, it was vibrant, it was life. I kind of got this image of like a heart monitor and a flat line. And I don't know if you thought about any of that, or how, you know, the vibrancy of the noise versus the silence.
Yeah, we're talking about visual or something could be loud enough or can have a sound. That's what I'm talking about. So that flat line that you see on the visual waves that I showed is the moment those people took for themselves before they give me answer. So those are the omitted words that I want to express in that. So in between their conversation, in between our interviews, there were moments of silence. So those are the moments of silence they took. So visually, I'm glad it communicated with you. So that means sound for me.
Maybe a couple more questions. How are you doing?
I'm doing good in my neighborhood.
I'm thinking about how your project evolved out of the political situation in your country and what's going on in our country now. And I can't stop thinking about the protests with the national anthem and the courage to be silent and to be misunderstood, and to the courage it takes to be silent with the knowledge that you might not be understood. I would be interested in your response or your thoughts to the power and the courage around silence.
I mean, I think we've been talking about that a lot. So I think the the silence, there is power, and that is a communication that you cannot define, but it disturbs. And the silence disturbs, and it disturbs me every day. And I think that's what I want to say. But I was also comparing to the silence that we're experiencing in my country, and also the noise that I'm also hearing in the US, for example. We are in a forced silence, I'd say. And then I can also see a lot of noise, protest noise on the streets. But still, we are in problems, we have problems, and you guys are having problems. So I was trying to find another kind of tool to play with between silence and noise. So if our silence is not bringing a change, if your noise is not bringing a change, so what to do? So that's why I named it in between silence and noise. So I'm in between silence and noise. Is there anything?
I'm just wondering about how silence would be viewed differently by people who are deaf. I'm thinking
Sorry?
for people who do not hear, who are deaf, what does silence mean for them?
I think we should ask them. I have the experience to represent them also before. But it's possible to think about it and to imagine or to come up with our own conclusion, but I would prefer to hear from them. Because I was asking some blind people, my friends, how they see dreams, and they say we have our own dreams, and we see it through sound and shape, like a sculpture. So when they see a dream, they see sound and a shape that they can feel than they see. So I think I have to be in their place to experience that and talk about it. I want to thank Lucian, they've been with me. All the people that I met were very welcoming. Everyone was treating me. I can just call. Carol was there for me, and going to the show and going to different places, going and buying my food, and all that, and Kay and Amy and Sharon. I really want to thank the performer, Taylor, who performed with me. Thank you very much for having me, St. Kate University, and the camera woman over there. Thank you very much. And all the people, everyone that I forgot, and for you also to be here. Thank you.